Hey everybody, this is Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV, and today we're going to be talking about trailer tires. And if you have a trailer, you've got tires on it, so you need to listen to this episode or watch the video. So again, this is Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV, and I want to welcome everybody to the show today, episode number 88, about trailer tires and what you need to know. So I'm going to have a few questions for you, so if you can watch the video, it'll definitely make it a little more lively because you can see the tires. If you're listening on the podcast, you're just going to have to imagine it. Use that imagination. This is the show for everybody, for in all ages. If you own an RV, the do-it-yourselfer, the guy that likes to take to a service center, this is the show for you, where you're going to learn everything you need to know about an RV. And also, as a reminder, I have a brick and mortar business, so that's where a lot of my information comes from, talking to customers just like you, and their problems, and helping them resolve them. All right, everybody, so now we're going to get into episode number 88, trailer tires, and the problems we face with them. So what I have here are 3 tires. This tire here looks brand new. This is a a Goodyear Marathon. So it looks brand new, doesn't it? It still has the stripes on it, the color coding stripes. This tire here obviously has a problem. We can see the front here is blown out. Now this tire here is brand new. This is a brand new Hankook Vantra. So what's wrong with these 2 tires right here? Obviously this one's blown out. Now this tire is 9 years old. This tire is 7 years old. Is there anything wrong with this tire? Can you see anything wrong with it? Probably not. And you're probably thinking, that's a nice looking tire. You know, it hasn't even been on the road yet. So this tire looks brand new, and this tire was brand new. It has a few hundred miles on it, but it was actually as a spare when it blew out, sitting on the back of a trailer. So this is a spare, this is a spare, this one hit the road, this one hasn't hit the road, this one hit the road. So why did this one blow out, and why did a customer want to replace this one when it looks brand new? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, and comparing it to a new tire and what the difference is. So if you take these 2 tires, looks brand new, no blowout, looks brand new, has a blowout. So the problem is the age of the tires. Trailer tires are not like truck tires, passenger car tires, where they last a lot longer. 3 to 5 years is typically the life of a trailer tire. Now, this tire being 9 years old, the customer didn't want to take a chance of going down the road and having a blowout, because the problem is when the tire blows out, not only is the tire expensive, but it does other damage to the RV. It can tear off fender skirts, break holding tanks, do $2,000 worth of damage for a $200 tire. Really not worth the expense. So the customer was smart about it. Now, this person here, this tire was just sitting on his trailer, and it just blew up. So he wasn't going down the road. He had no opportunity to change it. It just blew up before he could do anything. So it's interesting how this happens and why it happens. And that's why we need to talk about tires, replacing them, and it can be painful. So sometimes these tires can get very expensive. The trailer has 4 tires, it might be $1,000 when it's all said and done, depending on where you go to. The conversation. So keep this in mind, brand new tire in mind. Hankook Vantra, nice tire. This is whatever brand, something master, and Goodyear Marathon, which, Goodyear Marathons aren't made anymore. All right, so let's go ahead and get these tires out of here. So we have a few things happening here with the tires. And what's so important about them is understanding how they work and how to keep them alive for as many years as possible, which, like I said, is 3 to 5 years, depending on where you're at. So the life of the tire depends also on how you maintain it and what you do to maintain it. For example, the one that was blown out as the spare, it's hard to say why that really blew out just sitting on the back of a trailer. It's 7 years old, the age, it had a few hundred miles on it. So maybe that tire, when it was on the trailer for that short period of time, hit a pothole and it tore the belting or the casing on the inside and wasn't visible. And then as sitting out in the sun on a hot day, it just decided to come loose with the extra heat. There's a lot of theories. You can look it up online. It's not even worth the time. It just blew and that's all there is to it. So you just replace it. Because there's not a lot you can do about it once it happens, and you really couldn't prevent it because it's a spare, and you wouldn't expect that. So there's not much you can do as far as that goes. But taking care of your tires, you can definitely do it. It helps prevent problems. Not that you're going to be able to see every problem, but it certainly is going to help prevent problems. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind is underinflation. Trailer tires should always be at the maximum tire pressure. And the reason why is the trailer is a set weight. It doesn't change very much. And it's the maximum load that the tires can handle. So that's why you keep them at the highest pressure. So if the tire is rated at 80 PSI, always at 80 PSI. In storage, going down the road, it doesn't matter. If you keep them inflated properly, especially while you're traveling, they're not going to get as hot. See, low pressure, if you keep that tire pressure low, thinking I'm going to keep it low, or you have a leak and you're not checking it, that tire is going to heat up and it's going to have a much greater tendency to come apart, to tread separate, or just blow out, period. Underinflation can be a problem. Heat can be a problem. Overloaded, can be the wrong size tire for the trailer or the application that you're putting it on. The age of the tire can play into this. The tread, if it's starting to separate, if you see cracks in it, things like that will, cause the tire to come apart when you're traveling. Sometimes the tire will just flat out come apart. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. You've done everything you could. Maybe it's age. It's hard to say. Now, one thing for sure is that all the damage that a tire can have is not always visible. On the top of the tread, I should have kept one of those tires up here. On the top of the tread, you might see some cracks, or in between the tread, I should say. And, those are things you can see. You might see checking on the sidewalls. Those are things you can see. You might see it splitting near the rim. The tire might start splitting there. But sometimes the tire will have problems on the inside that you can't see. It's not visible. And there's not much you can do. You can't take the tire off the rim, and inspect it that way. That gets a little crazy, get expensive to do as well. So it's giving the tires visual inspections and making sure that they don't have cracks, that the tread's not separating. You're going to look for bulges in the tread, bulges in the sidewall. And, with that being said, I'd say about 50% of the trailers that come into our facility for any kind of work need tires. That's a big number, 50%. But almost every trailer at that point, or, half of them, when you look at the tires, they have problems. And, I hate to say it, sometimes people look at, those are just little cracks. I'm not going to worry about it, So we emphasize to look at that, pay closer attention to it. Because, a lot of the traveling they do is local here within, 50 to 100 miles. So they're not as concerned about it. And rightly so, I guess. But nonetheless, the tire can just come apart. So you want to keep an eye on it. And if you have a trailer that has tires, and you're probably going to have problems with it, and you're probably going to be replacing tires prematurely, is what it's going to seem like, because they start to crack and come apart before the tread's even worn out. And that's one of the things that quite often we go by, like a car tire. You look at the tread. The tread looks great. These tires have a lot of miles left on them. So you keep looking at the tread, and as time goes on, the tread starts to, wear down. Then it finally gets down to the wear bars. I'm going to replace these tires. Well, trailer tires are typically not the same way. Generally, they have to be replaced long before the tread ever wears out. The tread is there. It's an indicator. It has wear bars, but the age of the tires is the problem. For example, on my travel trailer, the tires were 8 or 9 years old. And before we moved to Montana, I had to put tires on it because I knew they wouldn't make it. So the tire shop was 9 miles from my house. And so I took the trailer down to the tire shop, 9 miles, and the tires were junk. They were coming apart on the sidewalls. The tread was separating. So that shows, the tread was great. They only had 2,000 miles on them, or approximately 2,000, maybe 3. But still, that's like brand new. And that's what they looked like. The guy at the tire shop, why are you replacing these? And he looks at them. I see. They're all coming apart. And then, I explained the age to him. He was a young guy, didn't seem to know a lot about tires, period. But, so you can't go by the look of the tire. Or at least, if the tread looks good, you can't go by that. You have to look for cracks and tread separation. And so things to help that are storage as well, how you store your RV, where you store it. Because once you put air in the tires, the time starts ticking on them and you can't see the inside. So what you want to do is try to store your RV in a cool, dry place, which might be hard to do. You might have to store it outside. And if that's the case, you want to make sure you have tire covers on them. And actually, sometimes it just looks so bad. Pieces of wood, stuck underneath the wheel wells. And that actually works really well because it not only keeps the sun off the tires, it lets some air movement in there, and it actually keeps the tires a little bit cooler than sometimes tire covers. But it's going to depend on your situation. If they sit in a garage, or in a storage unit, or under 100% where there's no sun getting on the tires at all, really the only reason why you'd have to cover them is just to keep the elements off, or what's in the pollution in the air, depending on where you live. If you live in a city, the pollution's going to erode or wear at the tires and oxidize the rubber. So storage is important, and everybody's situation is different circumstances. So how you store it is going to be upon your circumstances. But basically, if it's outside, keep the sun off the tires, and the cooler they are, the longer they're going to last. Places like Arizona, it almost doesn't matter what you do to a tire; it's just not going to last because the sun is just baking it, or the heat is baking it. But someplace like here in Montana, where it's a lot cooler year round, you don't have to worry about it as much. You can be a little more lax about it because the cool weather doesn't oxidize the tire and make them to degrade prematurely. So another thing, you have the storage, you have blowing out, but also tire construction. Okay, so there's different types of construction, tire construction. And so what we have to know is the three types: LT for light truck, P for passenger car, and ST is for special trailer. And ST are what you'd use on a trailer tire. There's a lot of controversy over this because a lot of people don't like buying their trailer tires every 3 to 5 years, or maybe they squeak it out to 7 years, whatever it might be. So they might buy light truck tires, and they might work, but are they working as well? Do you really gain the extra life for the extra money you're going to spend? Or some people put on passenger car tires, so they're a softer ride, they're cushier, but they don't work as well either. Trailer tires are designed a specific way. They have to have a sidewall that flex, gives a little bit. Have you ever backed up your trailer and you have a tandem axle and it looks like the tires are all bent out of shape, like they're going to blow apart? Well, the tires have to be able to flex and bend with that. They're so close together that it's not like a car or a truck. And the manufacturers of tires like Goodyear, Hankook, Kenda, whoever, Carlisle, they put research into this. They're not just making these tires and saying, let's just make a tire and call it good. They're putting research into this. They have factories that they run and control and do testing. So the trailer tires sometimes seem like a pain because they're a little more fragile, because they can't really sit the way they do. RVs have a tendency of sitting, sometimes for 9-10 months before they get used, or years. And then the frustration comes in because you got to blow out. You had to buy new tires, and I'm tired of these trailer tires. I'm not getting the STs anymore. Well, you want to think about that long and hard. Now, if you have a friend who has a similar trailer and he's put light truck tires on it and they've lasted him for 10 years, then maybe you want to talk to him about it, see what kind of tires they are, and maybe buying those same tires would be worthwhile. It's hard to say. But from my experience, everybody that's ever done this has never done it right. They always have problems, or they never can seem to remember what kind of tires they are, no matter what. So you don't know what to put on there, because you can't just put on anything. It's they've tested it. That'd be the way to go, because they've already tested. They've had the problems or the successes, whatever it might be. So the construction is very important. We don't want to minimize that. And the other painful part of buying trailer tires and having a trailer is if you have to replace your 4 main tires, on a tandem axle trailer, do the spare as well. It's just as old as the other tires. The spare, even though it hasn't been on the ground, hasn't been going down the road, it is still aged the same. And it's not always just wear and tear on the road, it's just time. So replace the spare at the same time. Now, I don't recommend getting a high dollar spare. Just get a cheap spare, because generally you're just going to run it for a few hundred miles if you do have a blowout and you're back on the road. Now, I also recommend having 2 spares. Yeah, that makes it even twice as hard, doesn't it? But if a tire blows out, let's say it's a tandem axle trailer, and the right front tire blows out, the right rear tire will probably blow out within several hundred miles, because when the right front blew out, the entire load now goes to the rear tire, and it hits that ground, or it hits the tire so hard, it can tear the belt inside of it. You can't see it, but it's almost always going to happen that tire will blow out. I have numerous friends, they tell me about a blowout. I said, you better change that tire. And they ignore me. And before you know it, 100 miles goes down the road, 200 miles, and that tire blows out. It's every time. So that's why two spares can come in handy. You got one tire that blows out. Heck, if you got two spares, just put them both on. Then go get yourself two new tires and call it a day. It's extra money, and hassle, carrying that extra spare. But to me, it's well worth it. The manufacturers aren't going to tell you that. The tire companies will probably tell you that, because they just want more revenue. But, in reality, that's what you should do. And all of my trailers have two spares. It's a given, no matter what, because of the problems you can have. Even my single axle trailer has two spares because, trailer tires can just be so iffy. Sounds horrible, but it's the reality of it. There's a lot of things to talk about here, but looking at your tires, giving that visual inspection is about all you can do to really, maintain them, make sure you're where you're at with them, how much life is left. When you buy the tires, make sure you keep the receipt so you can go back and look at the date. Experience has taught me that when someone asks you how old that is, for example, people will buy a battery and they'll go back to the store. Hey, this battery's no good. I just bought it. It's brand new. And the store might say, okay, well, let me look you up. And they find them in the computer and they go, oh, okay, so listen, this is a Interstate 24 series. Oh, it looks like you got this 3 years ago. Oh, really? Seems like it's just yesterday. So you see, time runs away from us. So keep the receipt so you have a record of when you got the tires. Keep them in the glove box of your tow vehicle or keep them in the trailer, the receipt. And you can go back to that. And if you really want to get, kind of more detailed about it, write the mileage down of every trip you take. If you take the trip, the trailer on a 1,000-mile trip, just write 1,000 miles. Maybe put the date on there. And that kind of helps you have an idea where you're at. So as time ticks by, you get into that 3-year area, you might look at the miles and go, I put 30,000 miles on these tires. Tread's wearing down, like normal, but these tires still look pretty good. Well, then I would just keep running them. But now if you're at, 3,000 miles in several years, it's a different story. The tires haven't been moved. They're not rolling. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but trailer tires are designed to travel down the road, not sit in storage like they do. Unfortunately, they can't really accomplish that. They can't get the best of both worlds. So the trailer is designed to move. So using the trailer as well, putting some miles on it every month if possible, every couple months, 20 miles, 30 miles, 10 miles is going to help lubricate those tires internally and help keep them alive longer, extend the life. So taking care of them, looking visually at them, and also checking the air pressure, making sure it's always at the maximum PSI, even in storage. And storage is probably very important because it's the one thing we ignore, especially if you store your trailer off-site someplace. It's not in your property, so you're not checking the tires regularly. It's not in front of you. So it might be a hassle to do that, but it might be worth the time because, you go to pick up your trailer and you got a flat tire. That could be a bad sign. You can put air in it. It might hold air, but is it going to be a problem when you go down the road? That's where having that spare or two spares really comes in. So there's a lot of little details, a lot of bits and pieces to this that, I haven't covered because it's kind of an in-depth subject. But at Radio Arizona RV, if you go there and click on the link that says blog, there's an episode or a blog post, and it's trailer tire safety. So you read that, and that's going to help fill in some pieces here, maybe answer some questions you have. And for those that are listening rather than watching, it's definitely going to help you a little bit more to have the reading it. And then even if you're watching the video, I'll put a link on YouTube there or wherever the video is at that you see it. So you can check out the article as well. It's a lot more in depth. So visually inspecting the tires, the 3 to 5 year rule, you can use that if you want to squeak a little longer. You can say you're on borrowed time, but it might be worth it if you can get a year or two out of them, depending on your budget and so forth, how often you use the trailer. If you travel locally, you don't have to buy high-end tires. If you travel a lot of distances, from, go 1,000 miles from point A to point B, then getting a tire like the Goodyear Endurance might be worthwhile. Goodyear replaced the Marathon. The Marathon is probably one of the best tires on the market. So the Endurance is one of the best tires on the market. And the Hankook Ventra is probably right behind it. So those are my picks for tires. And of course, there's TBC, Gladiators, and all these others that we do recommend, for our local customers here. And if you have any questions, you can always call me as well. The number's at radioarizonarv.com, or you can send me an email, whatever it might be. So I want to thank you for watching the video and listening to the show today. Check out our website, radioarizonarv.com. And you can also check out our website, sunpromanufacturing.com, for all the sunshade products that we make here in-house. So again, this is Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV.